Okay, let's talk about what type of insurance you need for a short-term rental, such as an Airbnb or a VRBO property. So, if you are someone who is looking to get into Airbnb, whether you already have a property or you're interested in purchasing a property or even renting a unit in rental arbitrage, then this is something you are going to want to get. Because a regular homeowner's policy is not going to cover you in any type of landlord situation, whether it's long term renting, mid term renting, or short term rentals. And then you do have like other, rental insurance that is for landlords, which is typically going to be more longer term rental coverage. So my parents were kind of in the real estate game for a long time. They used to be landlords. They had a bunch of properties and they had like a rental insurance, policy that was made for landlords. So they would have people that they had to evict or they had to take to court in some instances. And their typical landlord policy, covered them in instances like that. Some stuff it didn't cover them that well in, but, they did have policies specifically for what they were doing, which was a landlord type situation. So it's the same thing in your business. When you're running a short term rental business, you are going to want a short term rental insurance policy. And I used to have, so my Airbnb, I kept the insurance the same. It was a regular homeowner's policy. I never thought anything of it. I never looked up anything about a different policy. And then come to find out that my homeowner's policy actually doesn't cover me if it's a short term rental situation. They don't cover like Airbnb type situations. And a lot of these homeowners' policies don't. So if you are considering doing a short term rental or if you already have a unit set up, you can get a free quote with this company here. It's Proper Insurance, and I'll put the link to them in the bio. If you want to go get a free quote and see how much it costs for your unit, you can do so. But essentially, I was online and I was looking for a company that was going to protect me and give me actual short-term rental coverage, because it seemed like with my homeowner's policy and a bunch of other companies I kept finding online, there were a lot of gaps, and a lot of companies did not want to cover me, or I guess didn't want to provide adequate coverage in a short-term rental situation. A lot of them are geared more towards regular homeowners policies, which don't cover short-term rentals, or they are geared towards landlord situations, which are mid to long-term rental situations. So I wanted to kind of zip through this so you understand the policy that I'm talking about. This is the most comprehensive short-term coverage that I could find. I talked to them on the phone for about 30 minutes. I read a bunch of their reviews. And so this is what I ended up going with for a short-term rental policy. So short-term renting is, of course, a property that is rented for less than 30 days at a time. It's typically considered short-term. So the renter does not live or reside at the dwelling. They are simply a short-term rental guest. Now, of course, as I mentioned, landlord dwelling policies have a lot of gaps in coverage that will not apply to your short-term rental. So they basically have a premise liability. It does not extend off the vacation rental premises. So they don't coverage amenities that are off premises, like think like kayaks, bicycles, even like liabilities like injuries that happen to a guest. Maybe they fall down the stairs or they slip on ice or they get bitten by the neighbor's dog, something like that. The landlord dwelling policies do not cover things like that. And then, yes, of course, I've talked about this in other videos as well, but your short-term rental business should, it is really a business. It should be a business. You should have like an LLC that you use to run that business. And a lot of cities, because Airbnb is getting to be much of a bigger thing and more common, a lot of cities require the short-term rentals to register their presence in that city. So you do have to purchase a business license to do that. pay business occupancy tax, and carry commercial business liability. So short-term rental policy is going to give you those things as well. If I insure my short-term rental as a business, can I stay there? In this case, yes. Typically with a like a longer term, like a landlord's policy, they're not going, it's not going to be seen as something where you, like the owner, can actually occupy that space as well. So if you are someone who lives there and you are Airbnb-ing a room, or you are Airbnb-ing your property when you're out of town, but that's still your main residence, then this covers you. A short-term rental policy like this does cover you, even if it's like a midterm or long-term rental, even if nobody's in the property, right? So, and then the last thing here is that home sharing endorsements, which I've never used, but essentially they are for owner occupied primary residences. And they provide very minimal coverage. Like it gives an example there, about $2,500 in rental furnishings. Obviously, if you've set up an Airbnb unit, you know that it costs much, much more than that to furnish a place. But they are basically designed where the owner doesn't live on site. And so you do need, for a regular rented property short term, you do need business insurance. So those are some of the frequently asked questions about a short-term rental policy. Like I said, this one is Proper Insurance, is the best one that I could find on the internet. So you can get a quote in the link in my bio. They will tell you everything you need to know. I made a phone call with them as well, but you can read everything as far as what it all covers. You get property entrustment, pet and animal liability if you allow pets at your property, bed bug protection, squatter protection. That's super important as well. Amenities off premise, I kind of covered that one. If you have, bicycles, kayaks, a lot of people provide those things with an Airbnb. So whether they are on the property or off the property, off premises, those will be covered under this policy as well. Liquor liability, and then of course they have a long list, and I can attest because I called my homeowner's insurance when I had that, and just to see like what they all covered and if that would be covered if something happened and it was a short-term rental guest, or an issue like that, whether it be damage, theft, etc. And they told me pretty much flat out that it would not cover any of these things. So yeah, there's tons of stuff it covers. I'm not going to go through them each one by one, but I know a lot of people ask me questions about the insurance deal when it comes to Airbnb. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend using your regular homeownership insurance, and I wouldn't recommend using a landlord policy. Those are going to have gaps in coverage when it comes to anything that can happen under a short-term rental policy. Which is what would qualify like Airbnb and VRBO. So this Proper Insurance was actually created. It is the only company that has a specific, that is specifically created short-term rental insurance. They do protect you against more unique risks that you are susceptible through with Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, Furnished Finder, all sorts of sites like that are going to be short-term rental, sites. So check that out. You can click the link in my bio to get a free quote, and they'll tell you how much it is. Usually it's super affordable. Mine was super affordable. So just wanted to share that. And that way, if you guys are looking for a good company, then you can find it. And you can go look at the reviews in this company as well. Again, I have not found anything to be as comprehensive as this one. Not saying there might not be more companies in the future that do offer short-term rental insurance, but this one so far is the only one that offers something as comprehensive as these. So I'll leave that to you guys, and you can go check them out.